Hello and welcome to another episode of Angel Insights, the show that goes deep into the world of early stage investing. I'm your host, Tom Britton, co-founder of SyndicateRoom, and today we're joined by none other than Kayleigh Kuptz, CEO of Deployed, one of the incredible companies in the Angel Academy portfolio. On this episode, we'll learn about Kayleigh's journey from Accenture consultant to building a B2B SaaS platform backed by Microsoft Ventures, and how she turned a problem that used to cause her late-night frustration into a product creating millions in savings for their customers. We'll also learn how Deployed cut their enterprise sales cycle from 12 months to 3, why US buyers move faster than UK ones, and how someone can manage all of that while raising twins. Now that's enough for me. Let's welcome Kayleigh to the show. Kayleigh, it's absolutely a pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
This is the first episode where we've got one of the Angel Academy portfolio on the show. As you're aware, we're now running a fund with Angel Academy, so it makes it a little bit extra special. I've read a little bit about what you do at Deployed, and we'll come on to that. But you have quite an interesting career, big corporate career. I was hoping you could take us through to kick things off.
Of course, happy to. I'm originally German, went to university in the Netherlands and studied international business. And then the path I chose after a fairly generic degree was to work in consulting. So I worked for Accenture Strategy for a number of years. Really enjoyed that, enjoyed the quick pace of it and the learning curve of it, being on like different projects every 6 to 8 weeks. And then from there, I joined the dark side and left to join my last client, which was HSBC. And then I worked there alongside my now co-founder, Jamie. And then we jointly went to Castle Trust. So I did probably not your stereotypical line of CVs, but I followed exciting opportunities and I followed problems to be solved, being a consultant first and then being at HSBC. I had various roles there. The one I enjoyed the most was a stint for a year as chief of staff for financial crime risk. So lots of really, really interesting projects I had to learn about, and staffing those was an excellent experience. And then at Castle Trust, supporting the IT part of a banking license application. And the commonality across them is that I was handed a problem to be solved. And that's what energizes me.
In this time working for these big corporations, there was one particular problem that you encountered time and time again that you just couldn't get away from. Talk me through what it was.
The problem was, or the problem is, which is obviously what we're trying to solve with Deployed, is how corporates engage service providers. First, on the side of being the service provider at Accenture, I had to write a lot of statements of work. So a statement of work is the document that defines what that service provider is going to do, how much that will cost, how long that will take, under what terms and conditions that's going to be delivered. And all of that is agreed over many, many, many emails and meetings, and then written down in a often outdated Word document template that's then never looked at. So deliveries is rarely linked to those legally binding documents, which causes all sorts of problems. So I faced that and had to go through this process every 6 to 8 weeks as a consultant. And then when I was on the buyer side at HSBC, I had to look at this problem from the buying corporation and trying to engage lots and lots of service providers, especially when trying to staff teams really quickly to get projects up and running, being faced with such a frustrating and slow and fragmented process was really, really frustrating. And if there were some sort of light bulb moment, it was a late night at HSBC and I was standing at the copy machine and it was me and my now co-founder, Jamie. We were on the floor. No one else was there. It was dark outside and I was at the copy machine copying 50 statements of work that we had to review that night just to see where pricing was inflated, where things weren't linked to outcomes. And I remember standing there thinking, technology should do this. This should not be done by me. And yeah, that got us talking, and that's something we're still aiming to solve.
You were at HSBC at that time. You have this light bulb moment, but then you still go on to work at the trust for a period of time. When was it that you decided, you know what, I've got to go back to that and I've got to fix this, because you've had this great idea, technology should fix this problem, as it does, but it wasn't then and there that you decided to make the change?
It wasn't, but we did have a lot of weekend sessions, evening sessions where we brainstormed that problem and did a lot of research. So even whilst being a Castle Trust, we got some funding from an Innovate UK grant to do research into this problem to really, really understand. So we got a third co-founder in Emma, and she ran that whilst we were still in our day jobs. And from that research, it became very clear. And this research was talking to procurement professionals, to project leads, to consultants, to anyone who's involved in this process, to really understand where the opportunity for innovation lies. And it was very clear that the problem we'd experienced firsthand is something that's experienced by everyone. I've been doing this for 6 years and I have yet to meet someone who says, I love writing statements of work. It's so easy. So it's just not, that hasn't been solved yet throughout the board. So
it doesn't sound fun to do them, if I'm honest, just the way you're describing it.
It's not. And yeah, that's how Deployed came about.
When did you decide, you know what, we've got to do this full time?
If I'm completely honest, there's a tipping point when excitement for your evening job becomes more than the excitement for your day job. And I think it's only fair to your employer to then leave. And that's what we did. So I think the research from that Innovate UK Fund and the work we did there really validated that this is something really cool and this is something we should be solving. And that was that marked the point in time to leave our day jobs and take that risk to try and fix this problem.
Very cool. So we've kind of hinted at what the product is, but in a nutshell, can you take me through what the product is and what it does?
Of course. So the Deployed is a B2B SaaS platform with a few solutions on it, but the common thread is that we want to help business teams inside large corporates to work more effectively with their internal functions, procurement, legal, HR. And the problem that we specifically focus on is the pain of writing what we call enterprise inputs. And enterprise inputs are any things like scopes of work, commercials, requirements, project briefs, hiring justifications, any of these inputs that a business user makes that impact all these corporate functions. And that makes it, in an ideal world, they need to work together to make this the best input or smoothest running process. But it's unfortunately not like that, because these inputs, they're very disconnected, or these inputs are written very disconnected from these corporate functions, and it's chaos. And these inputs are so important because they define how companies spend millions. They define how much risk they take on. They define what ROI they make on their projects. And they have a lot of power. So to rethink that and to make that really structured and to do that really structured at scale is what we're trying to achieve. So that's sort of the problem we're solving. What that means in a way of a solution is that for a business user, now writing, instead of having to deal with a lengthy 30-page contract where they can play around with clauses and then have to deal with lots of free text boxes, they just have to go through a very easy conversational flow. So it's as easy as filling the survey. And by answering questions, the contract automatically generates. It's collaboration in there. They can invite the vendor, they can invite these corporate functions. It's a joint activity of co-authoring these inputs. And it's the same with hiring decisions. So we've got a solution for that as well. Spend 3 minutes on answering a couple of questions just to understand how you should staff your project. Do you need a consultant? Do you need a contingent worker? Do you need a permanent worker? It's these decisions that are often made on the whim that we give structure and also embedded compliance and policy to protect the business.
Before you developed the product, of course, you had firsthand experience with the problem that you were solving. Roughly what amount of time does it save your customers from using your product versus having to do the forms manually?
We see time savings of about 75%.
Wow.
So I had one client creating a document took on average 15 days. We got that down to 4 days.
Wow.
Depending on the complexity of the product, you can also do some less complex products within hours instead of days now. And others, more complex ones, are days instead of weeks. So there's significant time savings, which has a ripple effect because it makes everybody who's involved happy because they have to spend less time on it. But the ripple effect that's really effective is that the project that's being defined in these inputs, whether they're hiring decisions or scopes of work or project initiation briefs, once the project starts, A, it can start faster, and B, it will start with some really, really well-defined scope and deliverables and objectives on what needs to be achieved. So projects and the ROI that companies get from running these projects and spending their change budget is much, much higher. And that's something we're super excited about.
Fantastic. if we could quantify that and take it a step further, these documents that were taking 15 days, and now you've got it down to 4. Like that 15 days, that's being done by someone who's not very junior. It's someone who's mid-level or above. So there's a
Yeah.
day rate of in the hundreds of pounds per person, and you've
Yeah.
now taken 10 days out of the process. So you're talking about thousands of pounds per document removed just by using your tool.
Absolutely. It's millions per year.
Millions.
So if
Gosh,
you think about a large bank in the UK, they spend 1 billion a year on services. That's
Jesus.
their spend. So if you break that down, how many hundreds of thousands of these documents that is, tens of thousands, and the savings for each of those documents, the productivity of creating this is so much higher. And the other thing is because we have AI components that suggest the right pricing mechanism, it suggests the right scope and deliverables, they're outcomes based. All these things on average save for a statement of work, so a service engagement contract, save between 11 and 16% per contract.
Wow.
So if you talk about that example, that bank that spends $1 billion in services every year, if we can carve off 11 to 16% of that.
Clearly, the product saves these big corporations millions, as you've outlined, but it's quite a new product. And what I've seen before is when you've got these new products, people are skeptical. What's been the hardest part about category creation?
I think the hardest part is that we're not just pitching a product, but we're challenging deeply ingrained habits because everybody's used to doing it this way. And because the ripple effect is so much further down the process that everybody involved often needs a lot of education around the benefits of doing it in this new way, especially when you talk about corporate functions like legal and procurement. They're so set in their ways that innovation is scary, even if it benefits them. So it just takes a lot of adoption efforts and change management efforts to get them on side. But eventually they do. They usually do when they play around with the product and get used to this new way of doing it because the individual user benefits. It's the company on a whole, but it's the individual user whose life we want to make easier as well. So they come around to it eventually. And with regards to selling it, you also have to educate the market that this is the modern way of engaging services. And with large corporates, they're not always the leaders in adopting innovation. If you go into those companies, some of them see DocuSign, just staying with that example, as innovation. And it's great to all of a sudden not have to print, sign, and scan a document, but you can do it with an e-signature platform. And then how to go in and say, DocuSign is over 20 years old. It's not innovation anymore per se. So it's taking that leap and taking them on that journey.
With a lot of these tools that are implementing AI and LLMs, you see resistance from people thinking, wait, that's my job. Is there quite a bit of, we don't want this because it's going to replace us?
Thankfully not, because the tool really augments humans rather than replace them. Because part of the frustration, which really helps our case when we sell, is that at a pivotal moment where corporate functions like procurement, HR, legal are pressured to do more with less and to move faster and to be more strategic and to do everything all at once. And for procurement to not just be this process transactor or admin gatekeeper, but to do strategic things. And the individuals that we work with then get really overwhelmed because they have to do these strategic things, but also they have to spend all this time sending 50 emails to get one contract done. So if AI augments the commodity part of their work, not the strategic part where they can use their brain and their capabilities and everything they know, but we augment the boring stuff, then they don't get scared of it because it is a use case that really, really helps them, but doesn't replace them. It just replaces the busy work. It replaces the admin burden that nobody really enjoys doing.
How long does a typical sale take then for this type of product? Because you've got these large corporations and you generally think they've got huge processes and different layers of people that have to sign off for it. So what does a typical sales look like for you?
It used to be a year,
Oh, wow.
a sales cycle. We've got it down to 3 months now, simply by progressing through some powerful use cases with some really great clients and having that evidence and those proof points to say, this really helps you. This helps you save money and reduce risk on a corporate level, but this also helps your individuals. But yeah, enterprise sales cycles are just notoriously long. So yeah, if that was one of the things I didn't know I was venturing into, so I was used to being a consultant where things sell really quickly. That's definitely a lessons learned from, with regards to speed of things that I didn't expect.
Well done for getting it down to 3 months. That's, yeah, 75% reduction from when you started it.
Yes.
Any other tips that you might want to share with others who are working on enterprise sales for SaaS businesses?
I think keeping the client as your focus and the client's problems as your focus is something that's helped us a lot. With enterprises, they all have their own policies. They're all in different countries, which have different regulations. So if you come in with an off-the-shelf solution, I feel that doesn't fit into most clients, at least not on the large corporate level. So obsessing about the clients and their problems, to listen to them, to actively involve them in feedback on new features, to keep them in the loop has been really, really beneficial also with regards to shaping our product roadmap, because they're the ones that use the platform on a day-to-day. I spend a lot of time with my clients, loads of time still. And I think that's part of the secret sauce to building a product that actually helps them.
Coming from a product background, I couldn't agree more. You've got to know them intimately.
Thankfully, our first investor was Microsoft,
Oh.
Microsoft Ventures. And then being a corporate venture fund, they didn't have any expectations that sales cycles would be really short, because they know that they're not. So it was a bit different than your traditional VC, and that was incredibly helpful. And it also helped us shape the platform, because before we could onboard any clients, we had to get the platform up to a security standard and a data protection standard that large corporates can use it to transact material contracts. So we spent 2 years building this, and Microsoft has been incredible in helping with that.
We know that Angel Academy got involved at a certain point in time. What was the process of securing investment from Angel Academy like?
How we got them on board was sort of an organic process. So to just walk you through our funding history very briefly, in 2020, we had a prototype and no client, and we entered a female founders competition that was hosted by Microsoft Ventures, the Mayfield Fund, and had Melinda Gates and Pivotal Ventures as the face of it. And we won the global SaaS category, which came with a $2 million convertible loan. And that really kick-started everything. That kick-started moving from a prototype into an actual product. That kick-started having our first client. That kick-started hiring a really good team. And that also kick-started being able to have conversations with the likes of Angel Academy and a couple of other investors who then 2 years later in 2022 joined our seed round. So we had probably an unusual way of having quite a large chunk of money in a pre-seed stage almost as a convertible loan to them when we did raise our seed round, to be a business that had revenue and had corporate clients and had something to show of themselves. And I think that's what Angel Academy really liked. And the other thing is, with Angel Academy, the angels that are on our cap table, lots of them are operators. So they really understand the problem and they're able to support with that as well.
Fantastic. Changing gears a little bit. We've talked about the business, the funding so far, and kind of how you've developed it, but you've got some big plans for the future. And I'm aware that one of those plans is trying to tackle the US market. I've found it not difficult, but there's always barriers to getting into the US market. What's your thinking on moving to the US now versus doubling down on the UK and just focusing all your growth effort here?
Yeah, that's a good question. Also considering that I would say the US is a bit volatile at the moment. So timing wise, that may be an interesting one. But essentially, when you look at our cap table, 50% is UK and 50% is US investment. So we have that standing from an investor perspective there already. And we are about to onboard 2 US clients as well. So we're starting to have that footprint slowly. But if you look at the users, a large proportion of the users that use the platform are in the US and Canada. So from a impact perspective, we're already doing a lot of things in the US. So it feels natural, given the size of the market over there. It feels like a natural and organic progression to obviously still focus on UK and Europe, but also to include and look at that market and the opportunities within that market.
Have you noticed any differences in the onboarding experience of the US clients versus, say, the European clients?
I have. And that's part of that reason why we want to venture there as well. UK buyers are very process focused, I would say, and US buyers feel more impact focus. And obviously that is very cultural for the US. They look for opportunities. They look for stuff that excites them. They look for things that they can believe in a big outcome. And in the UK, I feel like there's a more conservative approach. There's a more rational approach to things, to look for credible track record, to look for who else has done this before. And on the back of that, the clients that we get are fully bought in. But to get them, it just takes a bit longer because it takes more of that narrative and more evidencing these proof points. Whereas in the US, they seem to move a lot faster. They get excited really quickly, and we can work with them. And our ethos in how we work with customers is to involve them. We involve them in the journey. We involve them in prioritizing what's on our roadmap. We involve them in listening to them and letting them test new features. And US clients get very excited when they can contribute to these things. And that makes it a bit of a match for us from how we do product from a cultural perspective as well.
I found that customer involvement is obviously a good thing to an extent, but sometimes you get those customers who want customization to the product that isn't necessarily in the roadmap or won't necessarily benefit all the other users. How have you managed to balance customization with general development? Because I always struggled with it.
I'm not saying I've solved that fully. It's definitely a struggle. And it's also one that we want from clients and their contributions, that they almost change over time. Because in the beginning, we were all ears because we wanted to hear and have as much feedback as we can. So it's a balancing act that we had to learn the hard way, because we did go down a too high customization road in the beginning. But as we mature the product and as we mature and our client base as well, if every client gives us all of that feedback, it's too much, it's conflicting, it doesn't work. So we had to learn to say no. We had to learn to define our own prioritization mechanism, to understand what's really bespoke or what caters for at least 80% of our customer base and features they would use as well, rather than really just solving bespoke features.
No, definitely good advice. We talked about expansion to the US, of course. What other developments are you excited about right now with the business?
I think AI is always very excited. So our AI use cases at the moment are very, very much around assisted writing. So any free text box is assisted writing to support users in writing something in plain English that converts into a legal clause or phrasing that's appropriate for contract, or making it outcomes-based, clear, reduce any jargon in language. So very much around assisted writing. But what I get excited about is, as we grow and have more customers, to do something with the data we collect. Which projects are successful and how have they been defined? Which projects fail and how have they been defined? And it's that data and that knowledge that I'm really excited to develop a framework around, that uses AI and that uses machine learning to feed that back to the users. We can identify as a cause for project failure or as a contributing factor to project failure, or suggest things that we can define as a positive contributor to project success. So it's these kind of things that I get very excited about, that require a lot of data, and we're building that data moat around it.
Very cool. And on the AI topic, more broadly, what are the things around AI that are interesting you? What tools are you using? What changes to how AI is working do you find fascinating?
What I'm most excited about is especially in the future of work context, is the potential to transform how we create and communicate structured knowledge. We have a lot of knowledge around service taxonomies and how services are defined and how deliverables are defined, and procurement teams and legal teams have so much knowledge around these areas. We use the tool to bring that all together, and use AI to bring that all together, to feed that into the business user who essentially uses it. And AI then turns vague business needs into clear actionable outcomes. And that's something, we're very excited about. As for how we use it as a business, it's been incredible for us to turn these Word documents that we get into something digital. So to do that really quickly and to do that within our own framework and AI framework has been an incredible time saver. And generally speaking, we use AI for all of our internal communications and summarizing calls and things like this. So I think, converting structured knowledge into something actionable is both true within our product, but also within our company and the culture we have.
Are there any things AI related that are keeping you up at night?
Yes, of course. What worries me, again, specifically in the client context, is the risk of AI being used to reinforce bureaucracy rather than reduce it. If you put AI on top of outdated processes, you're not creating smarter work. You're making red tape faster. Like it's the danger is to miss an opportunity to rethink how workflows between teams and these functions can be improved, and how can AI be improved for that, rather than just slapping an AI layer on top of an archaic process, which makes everything worse in a way. So yeah, that's something that keeps me up at night, because there's an AI hype. There's corporate enterprises are buying and using and are expected to buy and use AI for all functions and all processes. And I do worry that sometimes the thought process of where it can be used and what it's used for isn't really fully fleshed out.
Going to change topics just a little bit, but you are obviously incredibly busy and working very hard to develop and grow the business. How do you find time to relax?
Well, I, on top of the business, also have twin toddlers. So relaxing is found for me in very brief pockets throughout my day. But there are very brief pockets that I make time for, even if it's just getting up before the kids and having a coffee in peace, just in my kitchen or on the sofa or in the garden, depending on the weather is, and just taking those couple of minutes for myself, trying to exercise and find those pockets in the day. But yeah, generally speaking, everything from managing a business, kids, household, looking after yourself is just a matter of ruthlessly prioritizing pockets of time and structuring your day around it.
As a previous management consultant, any tips for other entrepreneurs on best prioritization tactics or how to get through that busy day?
I like to get up really early. That works for me, because then I start the day having had some me time, or having already prepped stuff I need to prep for the day. May that be for the kids or may that be for work. But I like to rather get up early and start that day with whatever I need in that day, structuring my work day, packing the kids' lunches, or sitting and having a coffee in peace and doing some exercise. Whatever I need in that day, if I start the day with doing that first, that has really helped me. And then the rest of the day is a lot easier.
I've got 4 questions for you,
Yeah.
because this has been a great episode and I don't want to take up too much of your time. 3 of them we'll do quick fire, and then the last one we'll let you think about for a second. So first, what's been the best resource you've been able to tap into as an entrepreneur?
Other founders, absolutely other founders. No podcast or book or event can match an honest chat with a founder over a coffee, who tells you their tales and their failures and how they overcame them in an unfiltered way.
I know you said no book can top that, but what has been the best book that you've read recently? It can be business, non-business, whatever you want.
There is a book by a founder that is very unfiltered honesty. So I can recommend that. It's called, got it here on my desk. It's called Founder versus Investor by Liz Selman and Jerry Newman. It's written by Liz, who's a founder, and her very unfiltered, honest thoughts around being a founder and how to deal with investors. And then on the flip side, Jerry, who's an investor. It's a fantastic book. I can highly recommend it, especially if you're a founder. It gives a really, really good and honest opinion on what works in dealing with investors and the pitfalls of it sometimes.
I'll be sure to put that one in the show notes. Third quick question. What advice would you give others who are in a similar space to you were, trying to make that decision on whether or not to go down the entrepreneur route or stick with the big corporate job?
I never sat down and said the next thing I want to do is be a founder. And I know a lot of great founders who wanted to be a founder, they wanted to be an entrepreneur, and they were actively looking for problems to be solved to achieve that. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's some great founders with a great business mindset where this approach works fantastic. For me, it was the other way around. I intimately knew this problem and it frustrated me and I wanted to solve it. And I couldn't believe there's no technology to solve it. And that made me a founder. But I'm not obsessed with being a founder. I'm obsessed with the problem I want to solve, and I'm obsessed with my solution for it. And that would be my biggest advice for founders who may consider leaving their jobs. How much do you want to solve this? How much can you hear about this problem every day from every client? and still be excited about hearing about it and be excited about presenting a solution to it and be excited about iterating that solution, because that is your day to day. So that passion has to be there. But that's a personal journey, because that's not like that for everybody. But that's what really works for me, because I have that excitement even about staying to work.
So let's talk about that journey then. 5 years from now, where do you want the business to be?
Our North Star is to be what DocuSign is for e-signatures, to be that for any enterprise document creation or enterprise input creation. So we want to be known by every corporate to be the solution and the modern way to do these inputs and to author these documents. Hopefully that'll be in 5 years, but you should probably have me back on then so I can answer that if I achieve that goal. How we're going to get there, there's obviously many paths to take. We're seed stage startup, so the next round we will be raising is a Series A. And I will embrace the journey of those 5 years rather than have that very detailed plan and the steps I will follow. I will embrace the journey of probably pivots, of changes, of hiring some more amazing people, and hopefully get us to that North Star.
Fantastic. Well, I hope to have you on before 5 years' time. We can see how you're making progress towards that North Star. But in the meantime, it's been an absolute pleasure. For anyone who wants to find out more about what you do, where should they go? What should they do?
They should go to LinkedIn/DeployedCo. We post a lot of content around scope and service descriptions and triage and misclassification of workers. And yeah, we're very, very content driven. So if that's something you're interested in, please go to LinkedIn/DeployedCo and read about what we have to say.
Well, thank you one last time for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we will speak again soon.
Great. Thank you.
Well, that's it for this episode of Angel Insights, and another massive thank you to Kayleigh for joining us and sharing some wonderful insights about her journey and the journey of Deployed. If you like this episode, do us a favor and like and subscribe, share, tell your friends about it. And if you want to find out more about what we're doing over at SyndicateRoom, please head to www.syndicateroom.com. That's it for me. I hope to see you on the next episode.